Welcome back to the Drive-In Asylum double feature, and you might see, along with AC Nicholas, our co-host for the evening, Sam Panico has returned.
Hey, hi Sam.
Hey, everybody.
It's about time.
I know, I'm excited to be back. I did my fighting, now I'm here to watch some movies.
That's great.
Yeah. So, man, I'm glad. It looks like a lot of people dug this movie, which I'm super excited.
I'm really happy.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy, you guys would never let me show my face again if you hated my pick. But no, I'm glad. Yeah, it's a cool movie.
Yeah.
And you know what? We've started the cult for it. I mentioned, Sam, in the first segment that I read somebody online give a review and they said that the movie has a small cult. No, it doesn't. Nobody's heard of this movie.
No, nobody has.
Nobody. You and I saw it. That's about it.
I had a hunt for it for a long time because I first heard about it and I was like, what? Because I was looking for like American giallo and someone said, this is kind of, it has some elements of it.
Well, that's the first question I want to ask. First, is it giallo or is it noir because it has voiceover, or because it's a murder mystery? Is it both?
It's the only movie that combines all of those and plants.
And plants, yes. Sentient plants. It's just amazing.
And it has a scene they had the Triffins in it too. I like that they did in that footage.
Yeah, they did.
They didn't have any high fashion in this film, though, but they did have fabulous New York locations, which, along with movies like Times Square, a couple other things I mentioned. I can't.
Driller Killer, or Fear City.
It made you think that you could be poor and still live in a fabulous loft in New York City.
Yeah.
Like Laura Mars's loft. Like she's
Laura Mars.
How good of a photographer do you have to be to live in that fucking loft?
Oh my God. Her bed was up on a platform and she had a giant wooden rooster in the corner of her bedroom. Oh, but I brought with me a little slideshow because I was going to explain about, I said during the opening segment, how I read a little review in Cinefantastique and they loved the movie. And then I looked for it for years and could never find it until I saw it late one night on Select TV. And a little bit of history here, because that's what we do. We try to preserve memories forever for people who weren't there. Select TV was one of a few over-the-air pay channels in the late 70s after HBO started in Wilkes-Barre in 1972. These started mainly in the big cities where they didn't have cable. So there's the logo for Select TV. And what it was you paid, I think it was $7.95 a month I paid. I got it when I was in school in Philadelphia. They gave you a little bow tie UHF antenna. I couldn't find any pictures online, but you'll have to picture like an outside UHF antenna, but very small. You put it on your set and you got a box. And they only started movies. They didn't show any sports or anything else, just movies at 6 in the evening, I think. And they ran till the wee hours. And the movies that ran at 1 o'clock were like this thing, where I saw The Kirilian Witness. I saw all the Radley Metzger films, The Libertine, The Punishment of Anne, Teresa and Isabel. I saw The Vampire Lovers for the first time, the Hammer film, and another film lost to the sands of time, the third Ilsa film, The Tigress, or the Ilsa, the Tigress of Siberia. So there's the box. You can become a subscriber. Look at that. Look at that. No remote control. You have basically an on and off button. I think there was a key. I think there's a key there for a parental lock. I don't recall my box having a parental lock.
Our HBO box had a lock on it.
Yeah, I know, back in the old days. So, and then in the last slide I have, you will see they advertised fairly heavily. And I went back and I looked at some stuff on YouTube some people have collected, like the station logos for Select TV. And the box in today's dollars, what happened was this box, it was pretty well designed. I don't know if that was made by Scientific Atlanta, who made a lot of cable boxes and decoder boxes at the time. But apparently there was a pass-through chip in there that if you crack that box open, you could basically watch these shows for free. So what Select TV had to do is they had to come up with a scrambler box, a better scrambling system. And they had a box kind of like when my family growing up, we had one of those big C-band satellite dishes in the yard. And that's when you could get HBO for free until HBO said, oh my gosh, you're stealing it. And you had to buy this Maycom the scrambling box. So the box in today's dollars would be $821.
Oh my God.
For the $7.95 in 1985 or 84 cost per month for the subscription service, one channel. But you know, this thing was like the Tubi of its day, because as I said, if they're showing the Kirilian Witness and the Radley Metzger films, it's for movie lovers, for like us, like of all of us here
it
tonight.
fits right in with your Atari VCS too.
It sure does.
I love that 70s high tech is always uses wood grain.
It's I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Why is that?
I don't know. Wood grain was rich and cheap. It's like, you know.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were fancy if you had something in wood grain.
That had the wood panels on them. Even.
Yeah, but anyway, I had Select TV when I was in school there for a while, and it was the best. It was literally a film school education after 1 a.m. I mean, just watching those Radley Metzger films. And I mentioned Radley Metzger because, Sam, you have picked my favorite Jess Franco movie for number 2 tonight, Venus in Furs, which I think is Franco trying to channel Radley Metzger. So you can tell us about it.
Oh man, it's this. People always ask me, because I've been doing tons of Jess Franco movies lately on the site, what one should I watch? And I'm always like, I don't really know if you're. I don't know if everybody's always ready for them, and I'm not gatekeeping. I'm just saying that Jess Franco is an acquired taste, even amongst people that like acquired tastes. But if I were to pick anyone, there's maybe 4 or 5 I would pick, but Venus in Furs would be at the top of the list because it's probably his most stylish movie, and it's the one time that his style over substance works. But also, like you said, it's got a great screenwriter. It's got man for man music. It's actually like, and my big theory about him, I was thinking about this week why I like it so much. And the more that Franco was going up against censorship and not the 70s and the 80s when he could do anything he wanted and did, him having someone to rail against and holding stuff back makes for better movies. And also Maria Rom is amazing in this movie, and she's great in everything that she did with him.
But I've never seen her better. And you're right, the screenwriter of this actually got an Oscar nomination for co-writing The Naked City. So Franco's actually working with an Oscar nominee for what? The first time in his career. I mean, plus it has James Darren in it. It has R&B singer Barbara McNair, who will sing the soundtrack. And when you hear the soundtrack song, you'll never get it out of your mind ever. No. And the images will be forever burned in your brain. And it also has... it's set in Istanbul, so it looks beautiful, and Franco had money, and it has Klaus Kinski in it, and Dennis Price,
who was living in tax haven because he made too much money. So that's why he was living in Sark and just making these movies. Yeah, it's also Margaret Lee made 12 movies with Klaus Kinski, which if you're going to give somebody a medal.
I know. Klaus, I have Kinski's autobiography was banned for many, many years, and I don't know where I tracked a copy down. I think Viking printed it many years ago, and I have it somewhere in storage, but it's one of the most hilarious reads you've ever seen. I don't know how much of it's true, but the story, it had to be from this movie. It had to be, because Franco said he comes back to, or Kinski says he comes back to his hotel room one day and he finds Margaret Lee and Maria Rom in bed together making out. And he basically called them sluts or something and walked out. but I mean, that book is absolutely amazing if you ever get a chance to read it, because all Kinski wants to talk about is 2 things. He's bored because he makes too much money. So he said he bought a Jaguar and he got rid of it after a week because the electric windows didn't go down fast enough for him. And then the second thing is he describes in detail his sex life. And it always goes something like this. He loved his wife. He says, I love my wife. I love her more than the air I breathe. I love her more than the heavens than you can imagine. The hotel maid is here. I must have sex with her. And then he goes on to describe their body hair and how they smelled. And it's chapter after chapter after chapter of this. And I'll be honest with you, I couldn't get enough of it because it's just the most bizarre read you can imagine. Well, Kinski was a strange guy, so you just know. But you're going to see Margaret Lee and Maria Rom and I don't know. My mind was just racing when I saw
James Darren's in this, who was Moondoggy in the Gidget movies.
Indeed, and he was on Time Tunnel. You know, he's a TV actor, but he's really good in the film, actually.
Yeah, and Barbara McNair. I forgot Barbara McNair was in They Call Me Mr. Tibbs, and it's like, how did she end up in a Jess Franco? Like, this movie has a budget and has a lot of people in it that would never slum it again.
No, you know, it's interesting that it seems like some of Franco's bigger budgeted movies were done with Harry Alan Towers, who married Maria Rom. He met her when she was like 18. And I kind of wonder under what circumstances he met her, because, you know, Towers was accused of running a prostitution ring, and he couldn't actually leave England and come to the United States because there was like a warrant out for his arrest. But anyway, look at this X-rated. Yeah, look at this X-rated, because it was. And this was released by Commonwealth United, which was sort of the mini major that released Eurotrash stuff in the United States, for lack of a better term. They had the Franco Count Dracula for a while, and then they passed on it. They chose not to release it, and that's why that movie was lost for years and obscure. But yeah, they had Venus in Furs.
So that never was released in the United States, just Franco's Count Dracula.
A company called Crystal Pictures had it, and I don't think they showed it. And then it went to TV, and Republic had it on VHS. It was on, there's a movie syndication company called Telesyn or something. But I have seen a poster of Jess Franco's Count Dracula that says Warner Brothers on the bottom.
Wow.
So either they released it in London, in England, UK, wherever, as a Warner Brothers film, or like The Wicker Man, they were going to release it and they passed on it, because that's a famous story about The Wicker Man. They ran it for a week in a couple of drive-ins in Atlanta. And I saw the poster when I was a kid, and I wrote that in Drive-In Asylum when I was a kid buying movie posters in San Francisco. And I should have bought it because it went for thousands of dollars a few years ago. But it looked like a porn film. They had Britt Eklund on it, scantily dressed, and other girls. And they totally made The Wicker Man out to something that it wasn't. And apparently it didn't do well, and they had no faith in it. And, you know, they pitched it kind of like Count Dracula. It was like lost. But this Franco film did get a release, as you can see, because Bill's put it up, and it had an X. Proudly earned that X, you know. It's a hard R. I mean, it's not an X really. Today's version of a hard R.
Yeah. What else do you got? Bill, you have some more posters?
Yeah, you got some more
posters? No, wow. It's just these two.
Wow.
Yeah, I love this one though. This is the image I always associate with this.
Yeah, this is the image.
This was a beautiful moment in the trailer.
Oh, this is amazing. Oh, it's got an R rating on this one.
Yeah, I think that X was a little overplayed. As you mentioned.
Yeah, I don't know if it actually got it. Look, there were some Franco movies that played in the U.S. with an actual X.
Look, it even says R on the bottom.
I know it does. It's weird. It's really weird.
ID cards will be checked, though, Bill.
Yeah, ID cards will be checked.
Well, they knew if they said that shit, that was going to bring people out, you know? They knew what they were doing.
But the Tower stuff that Franco did, like he did The Bloody Judge and this one, and I mean,
Girl from Rio.
Girl from Rio. They're good-looking movies. This one looks beautiful. This remastered version looks great.
This is one of the ones where there's less of the things that make fun of Franco. There's not a lot of zooms.
Right.
There's a little less of the nonstop looking at the scenery.
Or out of focus shots.
Yeah.
Franco's real good about going out of focus to end the shot.
Oh, man. The Eugenie just came out on 4K, and I was like, surely that whole scene that's out of focus, it's been fixed. No, I have a 4K version of it that's completely out of focus. You know, I mean, it's like even more. It's like looks beautiful, film grainy, out of focus.
We were talking on the first segment about how sometimes Shriek of the Mutilated was the subject.
Yeah.
But sometimes a movie is better if it's in low res, or
Yeah.
when you used to see it on TV and it was all blurry and out of
Mhm.
focus and everything like that, sort of adds to its mystique in a certain way.
Yeah, it does. Well, this one, as I said, Bill and I were talking, this one ran on Chiller Theater. I missed it when I was a kid, when I was a teenager. I can't imagine how Chilly Billy ran it. It must have been like a 40-minute cut, you know, because there's a lot of nudity in this thing.
Yeah, I don't understand how, but well, I can't imagine him talking about it or
I don't think he
introducing it.
watched it. He didn't watch the movies. That's what Gene
Well,
said when
I
he knew
had
him.
some Streak of the Mutilated related news. Is I found out I was watching a non-movie channel on YouTube about video games, and it was
Mhm.
about how popcorn got used in a ton of video games, and the rights holders found out and went and found all those video game companies and sued them. In the same way that popcorn's taken out of the cuts of Streak of the Mutilated.
Yep.
And it was they must have realized sometime around like 1982. They're like, wait a second, everybody's using our song. We have to stop this. So it was like literally about how you can't get those games anymore with the old music.
Yeah, right. Bum, 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 right?
Yeah,
There was
that was a
a
real bummer. Like the first cut of Shriek of the Mutilated I saw had popcorn in it. And
yeah.
then shortly after that, it was released on Retro Media DVD. It's kind of confusing because some cuts of the movie have popcorn, and they also there's footage cut from that murder at the beginning of the movie where like
Mhm.
he cuts her throat with an electric carving knife, and she
Right.
throws a
Yeah.
toaster in the bathtub. That's missing.
Yeah.
Most of that is missing from a lot of prints of the movie, so it's really hard to get a comprehensive cut. And the Vinegar Syndrome version finally corrected that. We have popcorn and we have the extended murder sequences. Thank you,
Yeah.
And
Vinegar
the art's
Syndrome, once
beautiful
again.
on the cover of that. I saw Bradley posted he got his. It's such a nice package.
Mm-hmm.
My review of this, I said that this is imagine if Vertigo was made by Hitchcock that could show that like nudity, or Lost Highway with trumpet beats and a lot of slow motion.
Right.
It's if you dig those movies, you're probably gonna like this. I also said there's times when you watch Jess Franco movies, you're like, has he ever seen a movie before, much less made one? Like, what is going on? And like, this is not one
No,
of those
this
times. This
no,
is
this
like,
is a good one.
yeah, and also like, you know, he's not using all the same actors. He has a budget, like you said. He has good writing.
Mhm.
He has a good script, and like the story is
Yeah.
really, really great in this one. I think
Oh, it's fantastic. You know, it's
yeah,
interesting because I'm a trumpet player, so I love the backstory of this because Franco's was a jazz musician too. He liked music. He and Daniel White used to work together on the scores, and he met trumpet player Chet Baker, and he basically had Darren kind of try to channel the Chet Baker sound and style. And you know, Baker has basically a Franco story. He was in prison in Italy for drugs, and he was an addict, and then he got beaten up in some sort of street fight. I think he was trying to buy drugs, and he got his front teeth knocked out. And he couldn't really play trumpet with false teeth. And then he was, I believe, in Amsterdam, and he fell out of his hotel room window. And there's some theories that he either was drunk or he was high. He had a lot of drugs in the system. But somebody said he locked himself out of his room and he was trying to do a cat's eye Stephen King thing and crawl on the ledge room, and he fell. So yeah, so Franco based the James Darren character on this great trumpet player who had the worst life. I mean, just terrible.
it's funny if you go through a lot of Franco's pseudonyms, they're always the names of famous jazz players too.
Yes, they are.
He used tons of them, including I just discovered his. He did a parody of Falcon Crest and Dynasty. Who knew? And he used a ton of different names for those ones. I was thinking about. I'm up to. I have like 200 movies on my Franco list. I'm at like 150 of the movies, and I know for a fact that by this time next year when I get ready to do more, there'll be like 10 more movies that somebody found. They're like, oh yeah, this one was, or he shot this cabaret scene and it's in this movie, and you know, a lot of his are like, you know, this one, like Zombie Lake, Jean Reno started.
Mm-hmm.
Who came in at what point? It's always up for conjecture of how much is him, how much is somebody else. He also is another one of those directors that made the same movie maybe 9 times, 10 times.
Oh, definitely.
And my other obsession is this movie doesn't really exist in the Jess Franco cinematic universe, if I could steal from Marvel. But like a lot of the other ones do, where there's always a Dr. Orloff, the's always a Cagliostro, There's always the same detective. There's always a jewel thief. It's like, how many movies? And at some point, I'm like, I've either seen this before, or I've seen it made, or even whole scenes have come from other movies. He's really like a remixer years before anyone knew what that was of his own material, of like constantly striving to remake things, and doesn't always end up as good as it should be. But sometimes it does. Sometimes there's moments of, magic that comes out of it.
Well, I've never really liked the one that he made right before this, which was Succubus, which is kind of the same style, that Radley Metzger kind of style. This one is like head and shoulders above Succubus, in my opinion.
I love Succubus.
I'm not a real fan. It's not as good as this one. Maybe that's why I just love this one so much. And
well, now I can't wait to see this.
Sam and I are, Bill. We're going to convert you here. We're not going to have to argue much.
I already know this is my kind of movie.
Yeah, you're going to love it. We know you're going to love it.
I've never seen it. I do love Succubus, and I bought that. That was a blind buy many years ago. Anchor Bay put it out.
Yeah, they did. I have the Anchor Bay.
Check out Jess Franco. I'm gonna buy Succubus, and I liked it.
It's not bad, but it's not this. I guess
it's
that's
weird.
Like, it's not this.
Now, I wasn't prepared for Succubus, but I welcomed it.
Now, I want to tell folks out there, and we'll talk about it in the third segment because I don't want to spoil it, but you got to listen to the dialogue in this movie, because the dialogue is just priceless of its time. And there's so many quotes that you'll be using after you see this thing. It's just great.
There goes Mike Justice planting seeds.
What's Mike saying? Oh, no, Mike. It's not overrated. Actually, that's one of my favorite Francos. That was great.
I mean, that may have been one of the first 7 things I brought.
Me too.
Yeah.
That's a Soledad Miranda, Franco. Yeah. You can either, the last time I was here, or actually the first time I was on the show here, we had Bloody Moon on, and we're talking about Franco and the different eras of Franco. And we were putting them down by producer, like when he worked for Eurosin and the Lasors, the father-son deal. And then he worked for Towers, and then he was off doing other stuff. But you could also put it down with who was his muse. He either had like Soledad Miranda, and then she got killed in a traffic accident. And then he had, before that, he had Maria Rom, obviously, and he has Margaret Lee in his movies. And then he had Soledad Miranda, and then he wound up with the love of his life, Lena Romay. And you could almost look at his career based on, who was his partner, who inspired him. And you can see him do work. And clearly, Maria Rom inspired him a lot in this.
Yeah. I really like
we lost AC Nicholas.
Hopefully he comes back. I really like What a Honeymoon I just watched with Lena that he did, and it's like a totally different Franco movie. Sometimes he'll surprise you, like I was not ready for this other side of Jess Franco, and there you go.
Well, I know this is a very personal film for you.
Yeah, I dig it. As I always say, Becca said, you say that so much, but yeah, it's true. I dig it. Becca says all the time to me, like you say, I dig it 30 or 40 times during the show.
Welcome back, AC.
Yeah, I lost you for a second there, but no, yeah, dig it. But I was saying about the actresses that he uses, and he Maria Rom is a fetishistic thing. And if for those of you who are familiar with the book Venus in Furs by Zakir Massock, gave his name to masochism, it's not that book. This is just Franco. I think Commonwealth United, the distributor, wanted him to use the title Venus in Furs. So he's got Maria Rom.
This is in the same way that The Pit and the Pendulum is not The Pit
and
the Pendulum. Or I like in that era of like, it's a good book title.
Yeah. Or like Franco's version, Revenge of the House of Usher, or that one I laugh at. But no, he picked up on that, put it in his movie.
I have to say, I just discovered his last Orloff. Well, Faceless is his last Orloff movie. The one he made in '83, Revenge of Orloff, with Mayans plays Orloff's son, and it's really weird.
I've never seen it.
I like it, but again, it's like it feels like every review I'm like a broken record. Like if you haven't watched a Jess Franco movie, maybe don't start with this one. Do you know what I mean? Like this is maybe not the one. And then someone finally said, like, well, which one is the one? So yeah, Venus and Furs. Or Faceless is really good too. I really like.
I love Faceless. I love Faceless. Yeah,
and especially now that there's the beautiful one that Severin put out. Like, you know, it looks gorgeous.
Again, he's got a good cast there, and he has a budget.
Yeah. He's got Telly Savalas in it for a little bit.
Yeah, for God's sake, he's got Bridget LaHaye and Telly Savalas, and you know.
The Bridget LaHaye's much better used within Jean Merlin's movies, obviously.
Yeah.
Because he found that's his muse. Like
you're right. That is his muse. You're right.
Person. Also, there's a really good the doc on his films is I think it goes up the last day of this month on Era Player.
Actually, it's up. I saw it tonight. It's actually up already. So yeah,
I liked it. The only thing I don't like is like I wish there was someone that was like super jazzed about his movies that was like they're the best fucking. Do you know what I mean? It was like everybody's very scholarly about his movies and like but maybe that's his side of the Euroslee's world is very mannered and like very simple versus the Franco side is lunatic stuff.
Yeah, right.
Jose Larraz is in between. He's kind of like comic booky, but also, did Coming of Sin and some other stuff. But then also like the end of his career is all straight up slashers. I don't know. I've been very into Spanish stuff this year, so thank you for indulging. Oh man, Frank D'Amato, don't start, Vince. That could take all man. I would say I'm on the Joe D'Amato side, if only because Bo Omega is so good.
Oh, I know.
And his cinematography is a million times. Like if you're just like straight up, how good of a shooter is he? He's really good.
In the chat, I see here Vince says Franco versus D'Amato and go, and Mike Justice says Franco greater than D'Amato. Way to go, Mike.
Why do they have to fight? Why can't we all be?
Yeah. No, you know what, Sam? You mentioned the three great Euro directors of the time. Larraz and Franco and Roland. And they all have their styles, as you said. Yeah. They're extreme.
I think if you looked at them at the time, Larraz was probably the most successful because Roland was kind of like continually failed and had to go back to adult. And his adult stuff, unlike the other two, is you can tell he doesn't care at all.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
But like element of his style versus when Franco does adult.
Well,
it's still just
Larraz had the advantage, unlike the other guys, that he was stationed in the UK at the time.
Yeah,
he was an expat Spaniard working in the United Kingdom, and he had better budgets and better acting and better stuff. And then he came to America, with his last couple of movies.
I love Edge of the Axe because half of it is in America, and then all the insides are in Spain.
Yeah,
and also computers from the future that can talk to people.
Right.
I have a question for you guys, but I'm going to wait until after the drink segment to ask it. Because Sam pre-recorded this drink segment for us, even though
I got to go get my drink. I have pre-made my drink so that I don't make a mess and spill it.
Well, sorry, I should have warned you that I was going to abruptly cut into the drink segment. Sorry. So yeah, Sam pre-recorded this, and Sam, I love these pre-recorded drink segments. You need to draw them out a little longer because if you try and make the drink along with it, you're like,
okay. Good advice.
Vamp a little,
Yeah.
Anyway, here's the latest.
Venus and Furs is rising. Venus and Furs is rising. Oh, hey, you caught me in the middle thinking about the song you're going to hear a million times in Jess Franco's Venus and Furs, a movie that you're going to need a strong drink for. And I'm a Jess Franco fan.
Why do you need a strong drink?
Because it's weird.
Is it boring?
No, it's not boring. Well, no. Yeah, maybe. It's a movie, I'll talk about it when I come back, but it's a movie that there's a lot of zooms. There's a lot of
zooms?
Yeah, a lot of sitting on the beach. Trumpets buried on the beach. There's a lot, but also not a lot. It's a whole different world. So you need to get into the world of Franco by getting real drunk or high. So let's start with drinking. So, right, Cubby? We're going to do an ounce of raspberry vodka. That's the Venus. Citron vodka. That's the Inn. And then the Furs, which is rabbit fur. Oh, no, I don't know what it is.
Rabbit fur is apple juice.
Apple juice. I don't know how those tie together.
3.5 ounces of apple juice.
Yeah, an ounce of those two, 3.5 ounces of that. Let's put the lid on.
Aren't you going to do your bitters, or
I'm
do
gonna
you do that
I'm
after?
gonna do them over the top, Daddy.
Oh, boy.
Alright. There you go. Shake it up. Now, let's pour that nicely. Whoa, it's furry. And
3 dashes.
one.
Dash. Dash. Dash.
Well, that's a sophisticated way. Anytime you put bitters in a drink, it's sophisticated. Like the nightclub scenes in this movie. All right, we'll put the kids to bed. It's time for Venus and Fur. It's time for this drink.
Is it furry?
It coats your tongue with fur. It's wonderful.
Yum.
So, look, you're on there twice, Sam.
I know. I did it. I broke space and time.
Pazuzu.
Pazuzu. I'm just drinking some Jamesons with cherries.
This is good, Sam.
Cherries pre-soaked in Jamesons, mind you.
Yeah, I was trying to think of something that they would drink in the world of this movie.
I can believe it.
Yeah.
So the question I wanted to, what's that?
Something laced with laudanum.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
And Becca shot that, and I'm really happy about.
She does a nice job.
She loves directing these, and she puts together the props and the thoughts of it. We had a little meeting this morning before we did that, so she does a great job.
I love it. Here's to more meetings
So
about
what'd you
content
say-
for the Drive-In Asylum double feature. My question for you guys
Yes.
was, do you think, and this is kind of like, you know, it's sort of a pointless question because movies are all subjective. We always say on this program, and we mean it, like, we don't care if you like the movies that we're showing. We're not going to be offended if we love the movie and you hate it. But do you think that Jess Franco, like, there's a lot of attention paid to him now, and his movies are taken seriously, and there's people, you know, like several of us on the program tonight that say, I am a Jess Franco fan. Where did this come from? Like, do you think he ever expected to have fans, and was he creating this content for a legion of fans, or was this just something he was just doing just to see what he could do?
He was working through some issues in his life for, I think, a lot of these films. And he liked making movies. Clearly, a guy who made all these movies enjoyed the art of cinema. I mean,
I think there's times in his career when he did. I mean, never forget he was Orson Welles' assistant on Times at Midnight.
yeah, he's a competent director for sure.
But there are times where you can tell that he does not care at all.
Right.
And there are times when you're like, wow, this is really good. And that's kind of what's interesting as you get into his later catalog, where you're like, man, it's some of these later ones are really have moments and they're really great. And then you get to another one, you're like, this is horrible.
You know, guys, it's interesting. When I was a teenager and I was reading the literature, the books and the magazines of the day, like Castle of Frankenstein and all of that, people hated him. They absolutely trashed Franco. And it was only, like I would say, and what would you say, Sam, Bill, the 80s, 90s maybe, that Franco started to get a little bit of a cult following, where you had directors who were well known that liked him and said, wow, isn't that weird? I forget which director said in Female Vampire, it's like Lena Romay flaps her cape and Franco catches a seagull overhead. So she's a vampire who doesn't turn into a bat. She turns into a seagull. And he thought that was really cool. And people started to realize that the Franco universe is actually complicated. I mean, there's a lot of stuff there.
And also, I think there's a lot of directors that started making movies, especially now, that are very influenced by him. They have like the weird pauses and the, you know, and a bit of the strangest in them. Also, I really think we were talking about it before we came back on. There are a lot of books that came out, like the Research Incredibly Strange Films book really spoke about him and Matcher in artistic terms that hadn't been talked before. And also, I think the Mondo Macabre book.
Yeah.
There was a series of books that kind of came out then that really started to speak him up. And then
Tim Lucas.
People got attached to him because not an American, to some American horror or like the expected horror gets, you know, the things that other people are writing about. They're like, well, if everybody's going to write about these, what if I write about something that is not explored? You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, he's a kind of guy that I think some of these academic writers about horror films took as their project, because if you're jaded from seeing commercial American horror films or the run-of-the-mill stuff, Franco is so different and so out there that he's almost like a feast for sore eyes. And I think that's why a lot of the academicians embraced him. And Tim Lucas wrote that huge book that I have that's like you could kill somebody with it. It weighs like 50 pounds, and he has all these just amazing pictures in there. I think in Video Watchdog, he was one of the first people that really wrote seriously about Franco. And that was what, the early 90s, maybe?
Yeah. And you have Stephen Thrower, obviously, right?
Stephen Thrower, sure. American Nightmare. Yeah, the guy who wrote American Nightmare. Yeah, a lot of people picked up on him.
Yeah. It's interesting, though. Like, it's like you said, he wasn't always a beloved figure.
Oh, he was hated. He was hated. And it was one of those, if you made a list of who made bad horror movies, it was always the same junk. I mean, you would see Franco cast in there with the guy who made the one about the giant conquistador, Giant from the Unknown, Chudna. And they also said, well, it's as bad as Ed Wood, and it's as bad as the guy who made Robot Monster. And no, I mean, those guys aren't bad either. But Franco is just so different.
What's wrong with Robot Monster?
Nothing. That's one of my favorites. I said my dream is
to
show. My dream, guys, is to get up on stage like I'm at a film festival and introduce that to a drunken high crowd at like 2:00 in the morning and run it.
Yeah.
Because that movie would just drive you crazy. I mean, it's wonderful. But you know, Franco's these guys. Tim Lucas said that to understand Franco, you have to see all of his films. And there, as paradoxical as that sounds, I think that's true. You can't just pick one Franco film out and say this is Franco's style, because he has different periods, he has different styles, as you said, Sam. He's either invested in the movie or he's not. He either has the money or he doesn't. He has the time, or he's making 2 movies at the same time with the same cast.
Yeah.
Well, that's something that's really interesting about following a director's work, is that you can track this period in his work, and that he evolved and changed as an artist, even if sometimes, you know, like this movie is thought well of, but he made other movies that people think are crap.
I think you can skip all his one-shot stuff from the 90s and 2000s.
Yeah.
And a lot of his adult stuff at the end you can skip.
I didn't mind the Killer Barbies too much.
No, I like both Killer Barbies movies. They're very Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, they are. They're fun. But this sort of like middle period here where he did Succubus and Bloody Judge and this Venus in Furs, The Girl from Rio, these are, I think, some of his more interesting films. Yeah, and I think people here on our watch tonight would really like any and all of those, because there's a lot going on in them.
I kind of like his what do you call it? His noir kind of period too, like the Rafifi movie.
Oh, Rafifi, yeah,
and
Rafifi in the City.
Yeah, and Death Plays the Blues. Death Sings the Blues. Like those are actually pretty well made too. It seems like when he's in black and white, it's like. They feel like a little elevated, if it makes sense.
Gritos en la Noche, his first big horror film, is in black and white, and it's great. And then the Awful Doctor, that's the Awful Dr. Orloff. Then the Diabolical Dr. Z, another one in black and white that's really great.
And it's very similar. They're very similar movies. It's like Orloff is like central in those movies.
And then the Sadistic Baron von Klaus. That's another one.
That's what happens when I'm like, thank God for Letterboxd, because I had to build the list, because I'm like, I really need to get these all into the same place, or I'm going to get, it's like what I bought. That's why I have the movie list of what we bought, because otherwise I'll just buy Poltergeist 3 over and over again.
Yeah. Sam, in the first segment, we were talking about movies with good plants and movies with bad plants.
Oh. Man.
So you need to make a Letterboxd list of movies with bad plants. We came up with how many, Bill? Lots.
Man,
A number of them. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them.
oh man, I was trying to think about that on the way home from wrestling. Like, what other plant movies do I like?
There are lots. I mean,
Oh
amazing.
yeah,
But
Day of the
only
Triffids is the one I was thinking. Yeah,
which one?
Day of the Triffids.
Oh, Triffids is the classic one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Franco, he's an enigma in a lot of ways too, because you
Yeah.
wonder what caused him to make these movies. I mean, he hooked up with all these European producers at the time for various films like the Eurocine stuff and the Harry Allen Towers stuff, and you know,
The
Sorry, I
Eurocine
have
stuff
Mike
also
and
gets.
Ike. They're making
Oh
noise. So.
yes, the Urson stuff also gets a little hard to watch too because you can't tell like when another director came in or
no.
when people came on, so it gets a little wild, and they're not all to the same quality, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know. I recently discovered a Eurocine film. You got to help me with the title. It had Robert Ginty and Bo Svensson in it.
Oh, Maniac!
Maniac, yeah.
Yeah.
And that one is like, I mean, it's definitely a Eurocine film, which they have a certain look too, but it's a little bit better made than the usual Eurocine thing. I don't know who directed that. I can't remember.
And also, a lot of Full Moon has bought a lot of their catalog.
Yeah, right.
And they've been putting out a lot of stuff where they're like, oh, this is obviously they realize Jess Franco people are going to buy all the Blu-rays they put out, and it's like, yeah, but maybe he did a scene in this movie.
Yes, here, Sam Panico buying Blu-rays of Jess Franco films. Yeah, exactly. But
that era started probably late '80s, and it's like, no, when Shining
Mike,
Sex,
yeah, Mike asked a good question here to zoom into the pubic area.
That's like '83, probably. Yeah. I think it's also my theory of that is he had so many years where it was like he was stuck under General Francisco Franco, and you couldn't do it. And they would shoot sometimes 3-4 versions of movies,
right?
Unsure of what they could release. And then once the shackles were off, he kind of maybe took it too far, I think. Not to be, I always feel like I'm that character from Tales of Ribaldry from Saturday Night Live. You remember when they used to do that? And he's like, this is delightfully naughty. I don't want it to be any dirtier. And then it happens like, hey, you've ruined it.
Do you think his zoomy thing, was he trying to be, was he a Mario Bava wannabe?
His zooms are out of control, like beyond even Fulci zoom.
Well, you know, the zooming too is actually a cost saving thing too. You don't have to edit. You just zoom and in and out and in and out, and you know, he cranes up. He has a lot of shots. He'll end how many movies, Sam, have you seen where he's ended with going up, craning up into past the chimney of a building into the clouds, and the movie ends.
It happens nonstop. Like
nonstop.
Or there's a scene where it's a sunset and someone talks through it for like 2 minutes, and you're like, what? I'm trying to remember the director that did a movie last year that's like super influenced by him. Can't remember. There's a whole letterbox list of movies he would make today too, which is really interesting because I think there's it's also like kind of his name's become this like how Xerox is a trademark that you kind of use his name, and I think Rolin's getting there too. Jodorowsky's another one where people are like, oh, like they'll use like I heard someone use that for Ant-Man. They're like, it's the Marvel movie Jodorowsky would make. No, it's not. But you know, it's like, but that's a phrase. Like Lynch is another one where it's like, oh,
it's Lynchian. It's Lynchian,
and that just means I don't understand it and it's weird, but everybody likes it. So I probably use this term, but I like David Lynch. So,
but we want to say
this brings up non-Franco thought. This is something I've been trumpeting. The movie, all 3 Thunder Warrior movies that have Mark Gregory in it.
Oh yeah,
I'm shocked that these movies have not come out from Severin. Also, Karate Warrior, the series by the same director. It's just crazy. Those are like the last of the Italian end of the exploitation era stuff that hasn't come out. Though I did get a new Italian exploitation movie this week from Cleopatra put out, Bill, the something of the Mondays. And it's fine. It's like very Argento-y, but with digital CGI blood and gore. So you know. Okay. But yeah, I'm excited for people in the chat who hasn't seen this before.
Yeah, who are newbies to the great Venus and Furs. I'm telling you, I have to say it again. The soundtrack is unforgettable. It's just great.
Is it groovy?
So good. Oh, it's beyond groovy, Bill. It's amazing.
There's a lot of jazz is another thing that constantly comes up in his films. As a jazz lover.
Well, the hero's a trumpet player, so you know, it's amazing.
And also, like, there's a scene in the beginning where, and it makes me consider the beginning of the movie because this is spoiler, very Jacob's Laddery situation in this movie. But he's been without his trumpet for some time, and they talk about literally like a trumpet player without his trumpet is like a man without his penis. Like he's like lost this major part of his anatomy, and why did he get rid of the trumpet? And it really.
Did you play marching band?
I play trumpet marching band. Yeah, I also play trumpet. Yeah.
Oh, I'm a trumpet player, so that's great. Yeah. And he's great. I mean, James Darren actually convincingly has the attitude of like a Chet Baker. You know, he's just everything digs it and groovies it.
Every once in a while, a movie really strikes Mark Dockham in the right way. And, this apparently was one of those.
Oh, so you're welcome. You're welcome,
to you, Mark Dockham.
Yeah, cheers. Definitely. Glad you like it.
I don't know why you couldn't find it on Facebook because lots of other folks are here via Facebook. So I hope everything's going appropriately with Facebook. You never know when you're going to offend Facebook, you know, and they're going to block your video.
Yeah. Who can say?
Yeah.
We were smoking on camera.
You did it.
Drinking on camera.
Drinking openly and talking about it.
Oh, no.
And bragging about it, you know.
You guys did. I gave the drink recipe on camera.
You know what we were mentioning in the first segment, Sam, was Bill and I were talking that we should put together our own drive-in show. No disrespect to Gene and George and the gang over at the Riverside, but, you know, kind of change it up a little bit. I don't know what we would show. Robot Monster at 2 a.m.
We would show things that nobody would come out for. It would be an empty
lot. The Kirilian Witness. You know, there you go. My film.
I always think about that because the theater in Lawrenceville here, Sean Collier just did 4 movies there, and or 5 movies. He said basically they came to him. They said, "We got these 5 movies. Can we just will you hype them for us?" And ever since I went there, and they pre El Topo had to air a disclaimer before it, and they talk like if anybody wants to leave before this movie, you can talk about all the reasons not to see it, and I was incensed.
I know that. Don't do that. I know.
Yeah, and Becca said, you know,
people left.
Yeah, Becca just yelled, people left.
Aw.
There were also kids in front of us cosplaying Little House on the Prairie, which I've never figured out why they would come to El Topo like that. But anyway, my dream is to get famous enough that I get to play 5 movies there. It won't make it past the first night
that's me. I said that was my bucket list. Is I want to stand up on stage and introduce Robot Monster at 2 o'clock in the morning to a crowd that's stoned and drunk out of their minds.
Yeah,
because it'd be
also Mike brings up can we show Scream for Help? I don't know if you guys saw. I posted it this week.
Yeah,
there is a letterbox list now of what movies people are requesting. So
that's wonderful. That I know. Yeah. But, we would have talked, like I said, my favorites. I know, Sam, you put it, since Letterboxd doesn't allow like a collaborative list, or does it now?
It doesn't, no.
No.
People have been asking for like 8 years since it launched, like, hey, it seemed to be a good idea to do a collaborative list. And they're like, yeah, we can't figure out how to do it. You can't? Like what's going on?
Are you guys going to hint for us what the movies are next week?
Well, it's kind of a surprise for Sam too. We didn't really discuss it, and I hinted at 2 movies. Next week is going to be a late movie. It's just going to be 11 p.m. There's going to be 1 movie, so prepare thyself. And we'll talk about what it's going to be when we come back.
Yeah, okay. And you know, if you guys have me on a 4th time, Mantis in Lace. I know I've said that. I think every time I've been on here, it's actually on one of the streamers. It's not on a fairly common streamer. It's like on Fandom or one of those other goofy ones, but it's under the name Lila.
Yeah,
which
I actually have a bootleg DVD of it.
Oh, good, good. So we could watch it.
It's
anyway.
funny because one of my friends that's a coder, went to a yard sale and they were selling a whole ton of movies, and like the old Severin Video Nasties box, and then a bootleg of Lila and a bootleg of Cave of the Zombies, and I'm like, what guy died for you to get this collection?
Yeah,
of,
right.
The weirdest stuff. Like it's like the oddest things that he got. He goes, yeah, I bought everything they had because I knew you would probably want these. I'm like, you're right.
Yeah. The other one that I wish, and Mark Dockham, I think, mentioned earlier on the Facebook page this week, that I wish I could find streaming is Behind Locked Doors. That really weird upstate New York, like 1968 roughy. I mean, that one with
Anybody, Anyway. Was
right. That one
title.
with Lila. I mean, your head would explode.
That was a Something Weird video release, like Behind Locked Doors.
Behind Locked Doors.
The trailer is amazing. That's really all you need to watch is the trailer.
Right. Oh, the trailer. The movie is amazing. The trailer is great, though. You're right, Bill. But that one is nuts.
A lot of Something Weird stuff. So there's and there's a new Something Weird streaming channel that's launching.
Oh, good.
It's going to have some stuff on it. It's funny. I was listening to the Canon podcast, and he said that he realizes he has so many junk Tubi channels that are like they start with they're like Eastern European Tubi channels that start with someone dancing for 2 minutes. And then he's like, my wife always walks in the room, and I'm like, I'm just trying to watch this spaghetti western that's not on any other TV channel. And she's like, why are you watching this woman? He goes, this is the unsexiest thing ever. I don't care about it.
It's like an episode. It's like an episode of this show.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's like, I'm just trying to find this. And she's like, nobody cares about spaghetti westerns that much. And he's like, I do. And I was like, man, I feel real triggered by this whole conversation. I feel seen, as Becca said. Yeah.
If you guys are gonna show one spaghetti western, can I make two suggestions? Cutthroats 9 or Django Shoot. If you,
I was going to say that's the exact one I would pick.
Yeah, Django Shoot. If you no, Django Kill. If you live, shoot.
That's the best one. That's my favorite.
You like that one, Sam?
Love it.
I love it. That's my absolute favorite. And Cutthroats 9 actually looks like a horror movie because it's got like disembowelings and burnings, and it's really gory.
What's the other one that's like the Django Shoot with Klaus Kinski in it? Cemetery Full of Crosses.
Oh, Cemetery Without Crosses. That's a French one. That's actually the one is The Great Silence.
Yeah.
The one where Jean-Paul Trintignant is the deaf mute and Kinski's the bad guy, and it's in snow. And that didn't run in the United States because Clint Eastwood wanted to remake it for High Plains Drifter. So the company bought the rights and then shelved it. But that one would be phenomenal. Yeah. That's very violent too. Actually, they're all violent.
And Django's really good too. The first Django, but
the first Django's excellent. It's excellent.
But there's some of the Django ripoffs that are really good too.
Yeah,
that are better than. And I really like Fighting Fists of Shanghai. Is that Shanghai Joe? That just came out from Cauldron, and that's a really good one too. Plus, it's super gory. And
that one's good. Cauldron's getting to be a good company.
Yeah, anytime you mix two genre together in a movie, like when Hammer worked with Shaw Brothers for a little bit, that's my jam. Like you know, when you mix those things together.
Seven Golden Vampire, or
yeah, like Strange Shadows in an Empty Room, as we've talked about before. That's
that's one I would pick too, because that has one of the best Remy Julian car chases you'll ever see. Yeah, in a movie. We had a show. You guys ought to show that one.
A Canadian giallo, but with an Italian production.
Yeah. And it has our favorite girl in there, Tisa Farrow.
Yeah,
Tisa Farrow.
That's good.
From the Grim Reaper and Zombie.
Right, and also it has it has Martin Landau and John Saxon. Right.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Wow.
It's funny because whenever
Stuart Whitman, another drunk.
Stuart Whitman's great in it. When Mia was going to do the
another drunk.
All my questions were Tisa Farrow related questions. If she had been there, she's like, "Well, what about my movies? I just want to talk about your sister."
No, I want to talk about Tisa.
Yeah, exactly.
Tisa's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did Tisa ever talk to you about working with Lucio Fulci?
Yeah, exactly. Tisa's in a really good movie where she's on a boat and they go to a zombie island and they're all karate guys. I really like that movie. And she's like, "But what about my crazy life?" I'm like, yeah, I've seen all the documentaries. It's fine.
Yeah.
Her character is really complex. She was born on a boat.
Yeah.
And then she had this devotion to her father where she didn't talk to him for like 30 years. And then all of a sudden she was surrounded by corpses from a Caribbean island that looked a lot like white people.
Yeah.
Right.
Mia's like, can we please talk about one of my movies? I'm like, okay, there's this movie where your son or your daughter dies when you try to give her a tracheotomy over breakfast, and it just keeps going on and on. And it's never come out in America. And
Yeah.
you don't want to talk about Haunting of Julia.
Haunting of Julia. Excellent movie.
Yeah. AK Full Circle.
I love in Zombie how most of the zombies look like white people. You're like, wait a minute, where did all these bodies come from?
That movie's wild. Like, it's so great. I agree
I
with
love
Mike.
it.
Mike's question about Hannah and her sisters. I think about that. Mike brought that up to me once, and I think about it all the time.
Mike's very observant. He might be right on that.
Yeah.
Did I show this last week? I can't remember.
No, but I'm already in love with it, so this is great.
Of course, we all know what this is. This is superstition.
Superstition, right.
This is playing in the UK in 1985 as The Witch, which is a very strange thing that happened because it was originally out on VHS in 84, I think. And it became so popular on VHS that some distributor decided they could make money by releasing it to theaters, so they did. And
With
God
The
only knows
Entity,
what they
too.
got out of it. Yeah, The Entity. How about that? What a double
We gotta show
feature.
that too. I'm
Wow.
on record. I love The Entity so much.
Me too. Me too. It's a great one.
That's a movie that we'll just be smoking instead of drinking during. We'll just have packs of cigarettes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really creepy movie.
The more smoking, the better. Did we talk about this, Sam?
No, but this is a canon movie, and
Yes.
what's his name? Curtis Harrington.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, Curtis Harrington. Yep.
Yeah, this
Starring
is canon.
Sylvia
Trying to
Crystal.
make, like 3 Sylvia Crystal movies, hoping to have the same success as Emmanuel, but unfortunately, this is when she was kind of going through problems, as they say, and you know.
Do you know what my favorite Sylvia Crystal movie is, Sam?
The Nude Bomb?
Yes. Oh my God, you fucking bitch! You got it. You stole my thunder.
I'm sorry. That was my favorite one too, because as a kid.
Oh, that's why I love you.
In school, and I'm like, well, I've seen her in The Nude Bomb. That's the only one I'm allowed to see.
The Nude Bomb. Yeah, that's my favorite Sylvia Crystal film.
You know what I don't understand is that she tried out to be a Bond girl and they didn't use her, which I feel is a shame.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this poster.
Look at this. Holy hell.
Yeah, sleep kills. Hey, jerk, sleep kills.
That's a great oh man. It's a screamer. If it's a moaner, you'll get arrested.
Yeah, I really don't like the Nightmare film series, the franchise, but the first 2 are so good, and I even like New Nightmare a little bit.
I really like 3 and 4 a lot, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
I think
Everyone
because
loves
3 was
3.
the first one I ever saw, the first one I saw, and it's an X-Men movie. Like if you read X-Men or New Mutants, it's pretty much the New Mutants.
Mm.
But 4's got some really cool effects in it, like the body full of souls and stuff. There's some cool stuff in it.
Oh, there's Dustin. Hi, Dustin.
Hey, Dustin.
There was one more here. Oh, and by the way, there we go.
Oh,
1985.
I forgot about the hardcores. Man,
I don't even know who that is.
they had a couple albums out there, like very Pop Will Eat Itself-y kind of sounding. I'm sure there's like 90% of the chat was like, that doesn't make any sense either, but that was a reference for Bill. Bill's like, oh yes, of course, Pop Will Eat Itself. Yes.
This is 1985, so this would have been the Head on the Door tour. Oh my God.
Wow.
I think that's probably one of my favorite Cure albums. Everybody likes Disintegration because that's when they went full tilt boogie, like one of the biggest bands in the world. But the Head on the Door is one of my faves.
Yeah.
I just think it's a little, there wasn't as much riding on Head on the Door. Like they were still sort of like experimenting and doing new things, and Robert Smith hadn't like settled into that groove that he's in now. I don't know.
I wonder where the Wembley Arena was. I was in Wembley Stadium a couple of years ago when we were in London, and that's such an interesting neighborhood in London because it's mixed, very diversified, interesting as hell. I mean, fabulous history of Wembley. But I wonder where that is, Wembley Arena.
I mean, it was one of the biggies. I've never been to London, so I'm not sure. But that was one of the big places, where the big bands played there.
Yeah, my son wanted to go to Wembley Stadium because they had FIFA soccer championships there. I wanted to go there because of the, Live Aid concerts, piece of history.
Our second feature of the evening, Venus in Furs, is showing on Tubi. And I dropped the link into chat, or you can just go to Tubi and enter Venus in Furs. There it'll be.
I hope we have some newbies here who haven't seen it. You're going to be in for a treat.
A couple people said that it was going to be the first time they saw it.
Yep. Thanks, Sam, for picking it. Again, great movie here tonight.
Make sure you come back afterwards. We'll have lots more to say about this and who knows what else on the third segment. And we'll tell you what we're going to say on the Drive-In Asylum late movie. Tonight we're the double feature, and this is our second movie, Venus in Furs. Enjoy.